Binders will be coming shortly. We are just finishing the construction in the back for the new ones. Just a little light reading for you. A little light reading. Jen, can you unmute for us and have you count so I can make sure we can hear you? And Wendy, same thing for you.
Yep. Oops. I'm here. Oh, let me get my camera.
Wendy, can you unmute and are you talking for us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Jen?
Hello.
Hello from Kingsburg. Okay, just want to make sure we can hear you and you can hear us. Okay. All right. Thank you, ladies. Right back.
you.
Okay. Hey, Mark. I didn't realize you were going to be here, so I need to switch out your thing. You can just grab a spot up here. Why don't you sit over here next to Veronica for now? Well, they said it couldn't be done, and yet we're all in one room together. And so far, we've got 3 minutes and 5 minutes in, and no one's left screaming yet. So let's try to stick to that for the rest of the day. First of all, I want to thank you guys for all having the wherewithal to join us today, and also to be part of what we hope to be a groundbreaking collaborative effort that brings together many folks from our community that may or may not have worked well in the past, but this is a forward-thinking situation, so we're really only interested in what we're going to accomplish together over the next 6 to 8 weeks. That's the whole thing right there. And to start out with, because we do have some new folks here and we're excited about that, I want to go ahead and give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves, tell us what group you are with, and we're just going to go right around the room, and I think we'll start there with Cher. Now, one thing to keep in mind, in front of you, and some of you are sharing microphones, whenever you're speaking, just push down that little thing. It'll make a little green light like a glow, and tell us who you are, what group you represent, and welcome aboard. So Cher, go right ahead.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cher Mua. I use he, him, his pronouns. I am with the Youth Leadership Institute, and so I'm here representing young people and Southeast Asians. Cool.
Thank you. Hey, Alex, we've missed you. So same thing, tell us who you are, who you represent.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alexander Naranjo, and I represent Fuerza. We just work with farm workers and the rural community.
Okay,
I'm SP Sandoval.
put your, is it on?
SP Sandoval, and I higher education for all nonprofit, and I'm from the West Side, City of Carmen.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Evelyn Morales from Cultiva la Salud. I live in Orange Cove.
And I'm Lino Mendez, and I'm representing the city of Valor.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amber Krall, and I'm with the Center for Community Voices at Fresno State.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mandeep Chahal. I'm with Jakara Women. I'm representing the Punjabi Sikh community here in Fresno County, along with I reside in West Fresno.
Thank you.
Gail Miller, Measure C Citizens Oversight Committee.
Hello, Dave Rivas. I'm the Senior Federal Rep Policy Director and Political Director from the Carpenters Union.
Hello, Dr. Esmeralda Diaz. I am representing Organización Las Panchas, and I live in the Southeast Fresno.
Wyatt Meadows. I'm with Operating Engineers Local 3.
Pastor Joby Jones, Stop the Violence Fresno, and Faith in the Valley, represent West Fresno.
I'm Mark Scott. I'm not Karen Pearson. And I represent Central Valley Community Foundation.
Good afternoon, Veronica Garibay. I'm with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability.
Joseph Amador, representing Mendota, California.
Good afternoon, Lee DeLapp. I represent the County of Fresno.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Mona Nyandro Cummings, and I represent Tree Fresno, and I'm here in place of Mark Kepler.
Good afternoon. I'm Reverend Simon Biasel, pastor of the Big Red Church and with Woven Coalition.
Yeah, Nick Palladino, First and Second Club representing Active Transportation.
I'm Kay Burtkin. Hello, I'm with the Fresno League of Women Voters.
Hi, I'm Chuck Yaden from the big city of Coalinga.
Hello, my name is Denise Torres and I'm representing San Joaquin City.
Hello, Darren Rose, Building Industry Association of Fresno Madera Counties.
Sarah Montemayor, representing the City of Reedley.
Okay, we're missing a few folks, and if they come late, that's fine, but we also have a couple people online. So Wendy, why don't we start with you and then we'll go to Jen.
Hi, everyone. Wendy Osborne, representing the City of Firebaugh.
Hello, Jen Guerra, representing the City of Kingsburg.
Well, thank you. Now, my name is Kendall Flint. I'm a consultant with DKS Associates, and I'm the project manager for the Measure C renewal effort. So I manage the facilitation of these meetings, and then also we're working with all of you and our other folks on the development of the actual measure and the ordinance that goes along with this. So for the next 6 to 8 weeks, as we are all bonded together, I will be running these meetings. And with your help, hopefully we'll be able to get through some really great conversations. I'm going to start out tonight by just kind of going through a couple of ground rules so that we're all on the same page. And we'll want to make sure, think of it as like, you know, when you get in the airplane and the stewardess tells you where the exits are, the bathrooms and all that. It's kind of like that. The bathrooms are down the hallway, all the way at the end. There's keys there. They can direct you. You can see where the keys are in the back. It is a long hallway, so make sure you pace yourself. We're going to ask you to have your cell phones off. I don't mind if you have them, but just make sure that they're not ringing while we're in here today. Also, in the course of doing this, these meetings are scheduled to run 2.5 hours. And as many of you know, we're going to have more meetings in a shorter time frame. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I do kind of want to go over the ground rules before we start presenting some things. Now, today's meeting is specific to the development of goals and priorities. And that's the goals and the priorities for Measure C. So it's really going to be driven by what you guys want to see. We're going to share some information that Transportation for All and the FCOG efforts have compiled. And we've been working very closely with the team at Fresno State. So it's a very great, I think it's a great presentation. But just so you know, for the rules of the room here, no elected officials or agency staff members are sitting on this committee. All of you are residents or representing community groups and or interests within the county. We are very hopeful that most of you will try to attend these meetings in person as much as possible, because it's really important to have that. You'll be able to see people in the room. But if perchance you need to go by Zoom, we do make that available because we know that sometimes that's hard for folks. We'll be getting a meeting agenda each week. Now, normally for other meetings, we'd send this out well in advance, but we have another group that meets called the facilitation team. So we kind of vet that with them and then send that out. You'll know the topic. And in some cases, you will get more materials well in advance. But for some of these meetings, it's going to be a little tight. All of the meetings are recorded. So this meeting today is being recorded, and it is being recorded on Zoom, and then will be placed on the Measure website. And that's measurec2026.com website. And we encourage you to have other people, tune in if they've got, nothing better to watch. It's not football season for 8 weeks, so we got some time. But really, it's a good opportunity to see. For those of you that are new to the committee, we've already had 4 meetings. And in those previous 4 meetings, we went over things like pavement condition, transit services, bike and pedestrian pieces, and just overall. So if you'd like to take a look at those, please do so. It's not mandatory, but we do think it would help inform your knowledge. A couple things, community members you're all encouraged to talk to your groups and tell them about what's happening here, and then bring back things that you hear from your communities. Right. So it was funny. I was talking last night. We were in Southeast and we ran into I'm going to forget his planning commissioner, but he was telling us all about the Punjabi population. And it was great because we could learn more things about that. So if you have groups that you do that with, please tell them to share with you and bring it back. All materials that you'll be seeing over the next 6 to 8 weeks will be vetted by staff and that facilitation committee. So nobody bring in things or handouts unless if you want something to be shared, just email it to me or email it to Robert Phipps. Hi, Robert Phipps. He's the executive director of the Fresno Council of Governments. And we will take a look at that and see if that's appropriate. And if the facilitation team agrees as well, we'll make that available. One thing that I do want to draw your attention to, we did this in our very first meeting for those of you that were there, but for those of you who are joining, it's equally as important. You all agree, I hope you all agree, that's why you're here, to have a respectful and collaborative event going through all these things. And while we encourage you, if you have your own opinions, you're going to disagree on some things. We know that. But we are asking that all the members agree not to post, shall we say, incendiary information on social media, to attend media briefings or whatnot, or to appear in local media, bashing the process, bashing anything else. We're all trying to work on this together. I said this morning at the Fresno City Council meeting. It's tenuous at best in some ways. So we're counting on all of you to be respectful of that and please refrain. Again, it's not saying you can't disagree or say to somebody, I would really like it to be X, Y, or Z, but no personal attacks, nothing like that. That just does not help us in our process. So as I mentioned, respectful. I shouldn't have to put this down because I think we all remember this from school or just our interactions. If you're going to disagree, that's fine. Don't want people talking over each other. So we're going to ask you to raise your hands. You can be called on. It's going to be your meeting to have the discussion, but just make sure it is in fact respectful. Members who miss more than 2 meetings we might want to find out if somebody else can help you out. And that's not to boot you as a punishment. It's just that we have some very lofty things to talk about and we want consistency, right? We want to make sure everybody knows what's going on and is coming at it the same way. For each of these next 5 weeks, we have a topic of study. And then at the end of each meeting, we're going to be asking you to vote on a recommendation for whatever came out of that meeting. The idea here is that with such a large group, we want to have this be as consensus-based as possible. And so the idea is if we can get everybody on the same page, you know, God love us, we'll be so happy, it'll be yay. But we have to reach a threshold of 70%. If we can't get to 70%, then we'll report back out to the board that we weren't able to get to 70%, and this is how it came out. But the idea here is to try to get to that so that there'll be a give and take on these. And I expect everybody to address that in a way that is, of course, collaborative and willing to give and take and have those kind of conversations. So today's meeting, vision and priorities. Vision being, when you think about Measure C, what is the purpose of this vision? What is the purpose of the measure long-term in the next 20, 30 years in this region? What is it you want to get out of it? What do you feel like its primary reason for being? And that's going to be like a couple of sentences statement of what that is. And we're also going to talk about priorities. And in a minute, one of our doctors from Fresno State is going to go through what came out of the initial phase of outreach. And that's combined outreach from T4All, from Fresno COG, and from Fresno County Transportation Authority. And it is substantial. And it's also, as we were talking, very consistent. There's not a huge difference between what people thought. So before you go, don't be scared. It's actually really good stuff. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is going to be the length of the measure. At some point, that's it, whether it's 20 or 30 years. Our next meeting is going to be a big one. That's on categories. And that's the different categories of how Measure C funds are spent, like what percentage is going to local roads versus transit versus bike, et cetera, et cetera. Then we're going to move on to revenue allocation by agency. And that's the formula that would be used to determine, once the money comes in from Measure C, how it's distributed to all the 16 member agencies, which are the 15 cities and, of course, the county. And then we're going to move into implementation guidelines, which actually is one of the more important parts of this. And that's where you really take a look at where there are going to be guardrails and or procedures that all the folks have to follow in order to get the funds, spend the funds, and get out there and make it useful. So does everybody understand that, or is there any questions about that? Does anybody have any concerns about the guidelines as I've lined them out? Can I just get a yes? We're all on the same page? Yes. Okay, I hope somebody recorded that. I just want to report out we've had our first unanimous piece. So we're going to talk about this again. I take the win when you can take the win. I mentioned July 30th allocation by categories, August 14th by agency, and then you can see the rest here. Now, in September, we're going to take a couple of meetings. I hope we can do it in 2, but it might be 3. And during those meetings, we're actually going to look at the measure. What's in it? If we have to, we're going to go line by line. In those cases, you're going to get the draft measure and the draft ordinance well in advance of those meetings, because I know some of you will have some questions. When it comes to the ordinance part, that's mandated by state law, so there's really not a lot of discussion that's going to happen on that. But as far as the actual plan itself, the guidelines, all that, I assume there's going to be a ton of discussion. Looking ahead, on September 27th, we're calling a Big Ten event, which is basically open to the public. We're going to showcase the plan that you people have developed and take in public comment and have them tell us what they liked, what they didn't like, all those kind of good things. And then after that, we'll move into polling, which is when we use a statistically valid sample to let everybody in the county know and see what we come back. You'll hear that in the feedback as well. Provided we have a measure that everybody likes and that the Board of the Board of the Fresno Council of Governments at FCTA likes, then it can move down the path to November. And just to reiterate, I think everybody knows this, but the whole purpose of this gathering of so many is to ensure that we don't have competing plans, that we have one measure, one county, and that's how we intend to move forward. And again, we're going to do the best we can to make this happen. We're hoping you're all in it for the long haul, the long ride. Any questions for what I just laid out? Okay, then. Well, in that case, I'm going to hand it over to our good doctor. Wynn, would you mind introducing yourself and just let everybody know the nature of what the work you do, and because she's brilliant.
Thank you so much. So, hi everyone. My name is Dr. Tanya Pacheco Warner, and I am the executive director of the Central Valley Health Policy Institute at Fresno State. And our goal is to help the region in any way that we can build capacity towards health equity. And so that's why we're here. And so we have a team of researchers in our outfit, and also our spirit is always collaboration. So this really fits with the spirit of what we do. Perfect.
We can get more information later, but I just want to make it clear. It's really on two groups. We've done over 14 workshops, tons of community events and pop-ups. T-Brawl's had over 3,000 comments that they've received. We're in that same ballpark with all the focus groups who do community canvassing in the neighborhood. And you're going to see next week, which is really cool, we've developed a map of the entire county of Fresno. Sorry, thank you for the waving in the back. We developed a map of the city of Fresno, or the county of Fresno, that shows every single zip code. And we're able to show where we had comments from every single one of those zip codes. So you can see it's cumulative, it's all over and that kind of stuff, which is really important. You're going to see the cumulative results of that presented cohesively together between us, right? You're not going to see two sets of data. You're going to see one set of data that's been combined, and that's where our teams have been working really closely together. And just to give you an example, and this is in progress, but you'll see the commonalities, like when T4L did some of their survey work, roads came out at 36 and 17 as the top two things that came out. Same thing for ours. The questions are going to be like the definition of a road, where the road, who's managing the road. There's all kinds of other stuff, but you're going to get all that data and you're going to be able to make a decision or ask questions about it going forward. But I just want to make it super clear that we're working collaboratively on this and have each other on speed dial at this point. So it's not an us and them, it's an ours. Okay. Back to you, Dr. Pacheco.
Definitely. One of the things that I want to reiterate is that when you saw those numbers in terms of who we've seen so far, none of that work has stopped. And so this is an ongoing process, and it is all meant to be iterative. However, we really feel like we accomplished what we set out to do in our phase one together, which is hear directly from residents. As you've heard, we heard from thousands of residents about what makes their community strong, where transportation improvements are needed, and what a better transportation future would look like. And in a sense, really asking people that core, what do people need to thrive? So the objective today, as Kendall will set out much more intentionally, is to collaboratively develop a single shared vision and a set of priorities that guide the development of this expenditure plan. So what you'll see is a shared piece of data that shares these priorities a little bit more in depth. The top priorities that rose for all of us in this data collection process, and when I say we, from now on, I really mean all of the consultants from all of the places as we are all doing the community engagement work. So we all identified that the community set these priorities for the region. One, roads and streets that connect them to their communities and also within their place that they live on an everyday basis. So it's really important, and we'll talk a little bit why in a bit. There's also public transit that was really shown to be a priority, and as you'll see, very intentional use of public transit. Safety rose for all of us in terms of how to help make walkability and overall active transportation, buses, bike, safer for everyone to actually use in their communities. People express the need to have overall walkable cities that connect them within their own neighborhoods and within their own cities as well. And there was a lot to say about how biking should be carried out and what people have as a vision for what biking should look like in our region. Overall, the message was about connectivity, and that regardless of the method, people want ways to connect within their own place and across cities and across this region. When it comes to the roads and streets, here's a little bit more in depth. And again, we have a lot of data to share with you over the next few weeks. So what you see here is what we feel like you need to be informed in terms of what community said to do this vision and priorities exercise today. Residents shared the need to repair roads and streets from potholes, cracks, damage, and heavy-duty trucks. And when we say they express the need for street lights, signage, and reflectors in rural areas, we mean we saw all of this in both conversations that we had with people and survey data. Overall, there was this sentiment that people just want their roads fixed and the roads that they are on every day. When it comes to public transit, people really think about this as needing more options than what they have right now, and some even expressing, as you'll see in a bit, is any transit is a desire for some too that have none, and also the idea of needing public transit in order to be more motivated to move away from cars. The transit that people wanted is around connecting people and bringing more accessibility. Accessibility to who? We heard a lot from elders that wanted to be able to connect more across from city to city or to resources within the county. We heard a lot about being more accessible towards those that were struggling with disabilities, and also to students to be able to reach our education centers throughout. So this type of thing is always about connecting to resources, and that's the narrative about why people identified public transit as a priority. One of the participants is quoted as saying, "My biggest dream for the future of transportation is for buses to get added to my city." We heard this over and over again, and actually different corners of the county, that when people felt like they lacked that public transportation, they really wanted it in their community if it wasn't accessible to them. Next, I'm going to talk about one of the things that people thought as enveloping everything about transit and transportation. It's that needing to feel safe, whether it's safe to ride the bus it also means walking to the bus stop. So safety is a huge need. When it comes to safety, what does that mean? That means that they can walk at night. That means that there's shade in hot days wherever they need to go, whether it's trees along a path or shade in a bus stop. But it's also safety when it comes to riding their cars and the idea of wanting to fix potholes that create a safety hazard within their community. So really feeling like they need that overall safety component regardless of their method of transportation. When we all talk to people throughout the corners of the county, they express that need of wanting to live in walkable and rideable cities. One of the things that was mentioned, whether it was a rural area or within the city, is that need for protected bike lanes and well-maintained sidewalks, and really being able for it to be considered walkable. Again, that theme of safety, and that's what they felt like was needed to be accessible. And it's not just having a dirt path that's set out for them, although some people, that's definitely what they want. But when we heard from most people, they want sidewalks, they want walking trails, and they want trees and shade along those paths in order to connect them to places. Again, it wasn't just like, I want a trail so I can train for my marathon. It was about, I want a safe way to get to my grocery store. I want a safe way for my kids to get to school. And I want a safe way for my young adults to wait for the bus to take them to their local university or college. One person really summed up the sentiment by saying, "My house is not near any safe or fun place. I have to walk on dirt and roads that have no sidewalk. I also have no bike lanes to use my bike, and it is very unsafe." And so that is in the idea of people want to be connected to resources and feel like the infrastructure is needed to support that. When it comes to biking, overall, as I mentioned, safety has been an ongoing theme, but really that idea of having dedicated bike paths, dedicated bike lanes, and some sort of safety protection. As one person said, "I'm scared to ride my bike because people don't pay attention." And so what you see there is a word cloud that combines a lot of the sentiment that people were saying in that around better maintained roads to be able to safely bike, overall safer cycling. Lastly, while you can't read a lot of those little pieces there, probably from where you're sitting, I want to talk to you about this enveloping theme because I think that this is the crux of every single category that we've presented to you as a priority. People want to connect to all the cities around them, the communities around them. They really need those to be connected, not just once a day, but felt like they wanted to have more options throughout the day and night. Especially, we heard this in rural areas where they felt like they want to be connected to other places and not just to like it's not just Huron to Fresno, it's also Huron to Coalinga. And so really connected within what we see as a network of resources around people. They really see that too, and they want to be connected to all of it, not just a direct one-way path to the metropolitan center.
Thank you so much. It's a light touch on this, but I do want to open it up to the group for any questions you might have about the process, how those things come in, and any comments you might have about those particular priorities, if those resonate with you, if those seems like those are the right ones. And is there anything that you thought would be there that isn't there at this point in time? So anyone have a comment on that? Just raise your hand and we'll get going. Don't be so quiet. No?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
well, some of those are not mutually exclusive.
Correct.
Yeah, for instance, you know, of course, I'm a cyclist, speaking for active transportation, and I'm an advocate for, it's called complete streets. As cyclists, we want well-maintained streets and roads. We hate potholes. We hate bumpy roads. We want, well-maintained streets. Like I said, smooth pavement is much more friendly than potholes because they cause crashes. So we definitely want a lot of emphasis to put on well-maintained, streets and roads. And we also want safe streets and roads. We want wider streets and roads so you have bike lanes. And on high-speed streets and roads, expressways and in urban areas we have high-speed expressways and high-speed arterials and super arterials. You may want to have adjacent, class 1 multi-use paths for those people who are not comfortable, like I am, bicycling on a bike lane on, say, Willow Avenue, where I choose to ride, but many people prefer to be on an adjacent path. So those that are mutually exclusive are mutually compatible. Safety goes along with connectivity. So we also want a network, a complete connectivity. Electric bikes are now becoming quite popular, and they extend the range.
Sure.
So you want a network.
So let's talk about that in terms again of let's start with the overall vision, right? What we're hearing a lot of this is the connectivity. It's not any one mode, right? It's multiple modes of how people get around. Kay, you're nodding, and I know we've had a chance to talk before. What is your thought on the overall vision? How is that reflective of what you just heard?
Well,
Yeah.
you're not done.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the vision, a multimodal network, give people a choice of options. I want a multimodal network gives people choice of options that's accessible and safe. And aside, of course, is, I want to move people away from a reliance on single occupancy vehicle. That's my personal preference. Give them a choice of modes. That's to make the transportation system provides connectivity throughout the county to everybody. That's equitable for all residents. That's accessible for all residents. That provides connectivity throughout the county, and that's safe for everybody.
Okay, I'm typing madly because if I wrote things down, you'd never be able to read them. So what I got from that, let me make this bigger so everybody can see it. I got vision of multimodal network with the choice of modes which are reliable and safe, and moves away from a car-centric reliance that is equitable, accessible for all residents, and safe across all modalities. Something along that line.
Yes, safe. It's safe, accessible, equitable for everybody. Yes.
Okay, we will wordsmith a little bit later. Thoughts on that? Anybody? Yes, go right ahead, Gail.
In my past life with Caltrans, years ago, the direction was, if you're going to have a project that touches, anything to do with state property, state highways, whatever, it had to be multimodal, especially when you're talking about interchanges. All the interchanges, the focus is multimodal, which they've been doing that vision for a very long time. And I think it's good. And I think we need to start that here. Just to fill a gap in a sidewalk, or just to throw some money at a bike lane to nowhere because it's not connected. It's all piecemeal. We've been doing piecemeal for so long. We need to really like you say, connect it to somewhere that you're actually, and with our trails, I know that Mark Kepler had written a thesis on the trails. There's trails, but again, it's not all connected. We need a network, whatever the mode of transportation with going, pedestrians, you're biking, or walking, a network. That's the future to getting people from one area to another.
Okay.
And I really like that.
So I'm hearing words like, safe, equitable, multimodal, accessible, connections that are building on existing infrastructure, connecting together rather than new. I'm just curious around there, do most folks think that this is looking forward? It's a better investment to connect what we have or build new? Just out of curiosity.
I just have a question on that, maybe a point of clarification. I think the way Nick described it around multimodal network that gives people choice of options to get to where they need to go is good. And the other points that I add to that would be sort of a transportation network and system that benefits all residents throughout the county. It invests in existing communities and what we already have, that there's connectivity throughout, that we promote community health and climate resilience, that we provide for economic opportunity and shared prosperity, including local job creation as part of that, using the opportunity to connect people to upward financial mobility, and that we also allow for advanced, I know Nick mentioned EV bikes and others, but who knows what it'll look like in the future. We did have an 8-year-old at a session that called for a flying school bus. And I know we may not get there, but she referenced the magic school bus as her point of reference. But the importance of really thinking about the possibility of innovation and what that may look like 10 or 20 years from now. But to the point that Gail just made around, should we invest in what we already have? I do want to call to question that there are a lot of neighborhoods and communities, both in the metro area and the rural areas, that have no infrastructure at all because they've never been invested in. There are no trails, there are no sidewalks, there are no complete streets, there are no paths that connect people. So just want to flag that when we say invest in what in what exists, we're talking about investing in neighborhoods and people and community, not necessarily build only on infrastructure where it already
follow
exists.
up on that, because I think what I heard you say was that, okay, we would encourage development to happen where development is already happening. I guess, we already have communities that don't have this infrastructure there. Is that what you're saying?
I would say in existing communities. And when we talk about investing equitably, that we really look at where the gaps, where there are communities and neighborhoods across the entire, this is the same for Fresno and Clovis, as it is the same for the small cities and the unincorporated communities, that we think about centering them as well.
As an example, last night we were at a workshop in Northwest Fresno. I was getting thank you. But as we're going down the street, right, there's a whole 3 blocks that have sidewalks, curbs, and gutters at a school. And then like 2 blocks over is like nothing. It is dirt. It is dangerous. It is bad. I don't mean to criticize, but it was just bad. So yeah, in existing communities, I think that makes a lot of sense. Does anyone disagree with that? Okay. So again, transportation network that invests in existing communities, promotes economic opportunities, local job creation, positions us for innovation. Yes, go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, not sure where you were last night, but I think we all have to remember that there's a system for development that's already in place. It's not perfect, but it is what we have. And that means certain jurisdictions, such as if you're in the incorporated area, city, they have responsibilities to do certain things, planning commissions and et cetera. So does the county. But as you get out in rural areas, there's less requirements and less ability and infrastructure capability. And then as time goes on, those developments leapfrog one another. Annexations are not always adjacent to one another, so there's gaps that develop. Probably not unlike you saw. But I would just encourage everybody to think that the number one priority was fix the roads, okay? public transit, you have to have roads. Okay? Connectivity, to go from Huron to Kalinga, you need roads. Safety, you need to maintain the roads. The bike lanes are funded through road systems. I don't disagree with anything Nick said, but we have to remember as we move forward, there's X amount of dollars, and where you spend those dollars is going to determine the conditions of the roads that we all drive on, whether you're riding in a car, on a bicycle, or riding a bus.
I just want to have a point of clarity, Kendall,
Yeah, go ahead.
because just because of one of the things you said, and I'm sorry if we didn't portray it, but the priorities that we presented aren't in any particular order.
Correct.
Next, in terms of like rank or anything, we'll be talking more about that data and delving more into it at a later date. So what you saw here was in no particular order. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. I think what we heard last night, and I'm kind of hearing from some of you, is that the condition of the road affects almost all the modes we were just talking about, whether you're walking, biking, on a bus, in a car, in a truck. If the road is bad, this is going to have a negative effect on everything. But what I'm also understanding, and I think if I understood correctly, Lee, is there are some decisions that local municipalities make in terms of the order of where they do development. And we're not actually doing development standards, but Measure C can help support some of this infrastructure, some of these infrastructure needs in these communities. And as an example, when we get later into implementation, there may be opportunities to, talk about communities that don't have certain things, and if we can prioritize those or not, I don't know. Madera just recently did that. But let's go back to the, I think I'm kind of typing this, and this is evolving as we go along. So everybody jump in. Right now, I have Measure C should support a multimodal transportation network that invests in existing communities, promotes economic opportunities and local job creation, positions us for future transportation innovations. And then the question is, I don't think we need to say that at this point. What other things need to go into this that would capture what you guys think is the thing? Yes, go right ahead. I'm sorry, is it SP?
Yeah. One of the things that I think it's a balance. My job requires me to visit every single community in the county. So I get to see the difference between East Fresno County and Western Fresno County. There's a big disparity on the roads, quality of the streets. I drive in every single town, and if you go to the city of San Joaquin, city of Mendota, worst streets in the county. And I'm always thinking about balancing. I'm a former city councilman in Kerman, and if you understand the city of Kerman is the west side. It's always been the uppity, and the east side has been forgotten. To me, my goal was an elected official when I first got elected into the city of Kerman was to balance the city. Now we're building if you notice, most of the parks in the city of Kerman are on the west side. So we're invested in a 40-acre park on the east side and decided to invest more on the east side to balance the city more. So I see, with my experience in being a public servant, I see the difference between the two counties. I call it the west side, and I see the east side. It's a big difference. Even 180, look at the extension of 180 to Sanger, what you guys have done to Piedra. Go to Mendota, where if you take 180 to Mendota, a lot of young people have been lost going from school on a Fireball, go to Mendota. They get killed on those roads, you know what I mean? So there's no safety there. You understand what?
Yep.
So to me, it's how do we figure out a way to balance our cities so that we have equity across the county? And I think right now we don't have that equity.
So just out of curiosity, what do you think the fundamental, why not? What do you think the barrier is for that at this point?
I think it's been the focus, because I've been involved, and I look at the when the Measure C first came up. We have beautiful highways, freeways. Phase 1, phase 2. I think a lot of the investment took place on the side and this side, and somehow on the west side we got forgotten. You know what I mean? So That's the way I see it, I mean,
Okay.
so.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, Chuck, you've had conversations with me about that in Coalinga, that there's some things that are, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, so far what you're saying, what's missing from this sort of vision at this point? What do you think we need to be addressing? Microphone. Yep.
Well, everything is sounding great so far, just like it was mentioned last meeting. Everything needs to happen in certain phases. It's kind of hard to do transportation and stuff if you have bad roads. So I like to see the roads and stuff get up to par and then start working on the other stuff. Don't put the cart before the horse type of thing.
Okay.
So fix the dirt road and then get the cart on the horse type of thing.
So I want to make sure because we kind of did it last time, but we're not going to do it this time. Tonight, we're not going to talk about the percentages of things
Right.
going to places. Tonight, we're just going to talk about the big picture.
Right.
And I think, at least what I'm hearing so far is that, it's consistent that we know it's got to be multimodal. We know it's got to do roads. We want to be looking at existing communities and filling in those gaps. There's nothing weird in this, right? I mean, this is all pretty normal. I'm just curious, Joseph, what are your thoughts?
Well, I served also on the city council in Mendota, and the sales tax in Mendota is a big difference from Kerman. Even Faribault has a bigger sales tax in Mendota. To try to keep our roads, in conditions is tough. But the other thing too, like you mentioned about going east, very nice, 180. Going way west is terrible. Why? Why is the county allowing that to happen? Anyway, it's sad. Because this comment on the media about already feuding, the board of supervisors making comments about these mayors getting together in a Brown Act violation. No, let's stick together, work together as a county, one voice. Thank you.
No, thank you. I said, that's exactly what I said this morning and got my hat handed to me, but okay. Mark, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I thought you were waving to you.
I am, but
Okay.
you can go first.
All right. Okay.
I just want to make sure this gets added. You're asking what's missing. It focuses on economic opportunities and job creations, but we also want to talk more broadly about accessibility to things that promote social well-being, human development. I want to
So
make sure that gets
talk about what that means for you.
So I always think of specific examples. I'm a mother of a child with disabilities, and living in Fresno, I have a lot of access to the services that she needs. And I've talked to families in rural communities who they might get set up with something, but it is a long drive to get there. And so even just getting services for folks with disabilities who have particular needs, it's hard to get to from certain areas of the county. And that's not directly about economic opportunity or job creation. It's more about human development and support and well-being.
So let's try to find a way to put that, to turn it around, to put it how a transportation investment can help that. So that would go.
Yeah, I think a key word would be accessibility. It's just completely missing right now.
Okay, I'm going to put this up, but I guess what I'm thinking you're saying, accessibility, as an example, I've ever had this fun. We just took my dad's car away from him this last weekend. Good times. So now he's like, I want to take the bus, except I'm afraid for him to get on the bus by himself. And so if he has his walker, there's issues with that. I've got another relative that has physical disability needs, and she can't get around. So it's the idea of having the transportation network be able to accommodate the needs of these folks who have special needs. Is that
That's part
close?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's an extremely important part of it if we're talking about equity.
Okay.
I wonder if what Amber's talking about, Kendall, you had typed the previous sentence up above when Nick was talking. I wonder if that gets at it, a network that is equitable and accessible for all residents and is safe across all modalities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me move.
So
that
maybe
down.
merging that.
Yep. I'm happy to.
Oh, that's not.
Oh, darn it. Hold on. Word salad. Okay, Mark.
I just wanted to add a word. I think this statement needs to embrace the idea that this measure should be transformative. We don't get many tools. That's the reason why this measure C is so important. We don't get many tools like this in a community, and we've had Measure C for decades now, and yet we're sitting here talking about all the things that we need and we're lacking. And this time, this vision needs to be bigger. And I'm sensitive to people thinking that I don't think the roads are important. I'm a city manager and I spend my life with potholes and paving. It's an important part of every community. But this has got to be more than that if it's going to be transformative. And I just think that word belongs in the
So,
statement.
Let me ask you this, and this is again for those of you that have different views. I'm just putting it out there. Transformative doesn't necessarily mean that tomorrow there's no roads and it's all transit. Transformative could mean innovations. It can mean all kinds of things. I just want to give some context to that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just don't want anybody to panic yet. All right. So if I were to add Measure C should support a transformative multimodal, would that work?
Yeah, I just think it needs to address the fact that this is not something we're adopting and it's a 1-year issue. This is a major long-term commitment of this community to raising the level of life for everybody. And we've got all those words in here, but I think it needs to be resilient. It needs to be something that we can adapt to changing conditions over the life of the measure. So
let me ask you something as a city manager. We talk about resiliency, but do we have any former finance directors in here? Finance, anybody?
Me.
Okay. So how do you then also to, keep the hearts beating without panicking? How do you introduce sustainable? Because there's a lot of things we want to do sometimes, but it may not be sustainable. So how would you work that in?
I'm not sure what you just asked me.
Well, sometimes people think that we might be able to transform something, or we built all these roads, but now we can't afford to maintain them, or we have all these things and now we can't, pay the bill. So how do you ensure fiscal responsibility and sustainability?
Well, eventually you're going to get to the point where you're going to talk about implementation.
Yeah.
And that will be an important conversation too.
Okay.
I mean, it goes beyond, I think, the vision statement, but that'll be a very important conversation.
So I guess what I'm trying to set up here is that when we have the vision, it's way up here, right? And then the idea is we build all these pieces underneath it to make it sustainable, to make it fiscally viable, and to provide opportunities for people to weigh in. So something can be aspirational at this point, meaning you could be trying to do better, not just do the same, right?
Right.
Okay, so right now, let me read this again and see where we are with this. Measure C should support a transformative multimodal transportation network that invests in existing communities, promotes economic opportunities and local job creation, positions us for future transportation innovations, and provides equitable access to transportation funding as well as accessible services for all residents across all modalities. I can clean that up, with all residents across all modalities. What do you think?
I'm just listening.
Are you just, come on, Wyatt. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
I have some thoughts. And it's kind of based in, obviously, all this commentary. I'm not quite sure where it fits in here, but the evidence that supports the strategy of kind of the planning. So, agreed upon sort of sources of information that the group can use for discussion of what that looks like. For instance, I think the bikes, right? The electric bikes. I'm a cyclist myself, and I'm just blown away by the electric bikes that we see now in all parts of town. And I think that will change the way that our transportation, our pathways look for the future. I think, yes, roads, but roads are going to include pathways for protected bike lanes for both electric bikes and regular bikes and someone in a wheelchair. I think that there's got to be more space. So, but that's my opinion. So the question is, how many electric bikes are out there at this point in time? And should we be thinking more along those lines for the future, that investment will in fact be larger than just an afterthought for, the typical car?
Great question. And as we come back next week, we are going to be looking at some of those different things out there and some projections of things out there. But for the measure standpoint, we want to try to think about, what the flying bus is great. That is, there actually are flying cars. Right now, they're using them predominantly for taxi service. But I mean, there are all kinds of things that could change. And we do need to build into the measure the ability to adapt to those future innovations.
Yes, but
right?
it should have some level of
I could try.
evidence right? Evidence-based or information, information sources, something that shows that as we move into the future, we're looking at the studies that the conversations we have with the community, the way that the community evolves and the priorities evolve and transportation evolves.
Yeah.
So I think it's just more in a sort of evidence-based approach as opposed to just simply, creation, sort of, I understand the simplicity of this, but it definitely should be rooted in some sort of agreed upon.
Right. No, I understand. that.
Avenues of information to be able to support the direction of Measure C.
Is that better for the folks that can read that back there? I'm
Much better.
I'm trying to do the best I can there. Okay. Ms. Martinez, do you have anything to add? No. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Kendall, you mentioned sustainability, and I'm assuming you're referring to the financial sustainability that we can financially afford something. I think it's also important for us to look beyond just financial sustainability and think about the expense our transportation takes on our health. I know a number of people who have moved out of the valley because of their kids' health in breathing the toxic air that we breathe. And so that's an expense. For me, that's more important. That's more costly of an expense because of our transportation system. And so what are we willing to spend financially, but also what are we able to spend with our children's lives? And so what changes can we make to transform so people are not moving out of our valley? And I know that there's a lot of people in this valley that can't afford to move. And so their lives are cut short because of our transportation system.
So let me back that up on the fact that we're looking again at this big vision thing. What you heard from Dr. Pacheco is our research shows that safe routes to schools, walkable communities, these are all we know important to folks. And I think sometimes they think of them as important just for their mobility. But what I'm hearing you say is that there's a health benefit for that. And I think most of us understand that. So is it your thought that we should work into this overall vision, at least a nod to these investments could result in healthier communities, safer communities for our children?
Yeah, so I think crossing the street safer,
Okay.
as well as the air that we breathe, that has been cutting our life shorter by a decade.
Okay. Other thoughts about this one? Yes, go ahead, Gay, and then I'll come back over to you.
I guess I'm influenced by a meeting I went to this week about transportation hubs, transit hubs, multimodal transit hubs. And it feeds into this notion of a network and connectivity for our county. And I've been thinking a lot about the necessity to connect people to really essential services, to the hospitals that exist in the metropolitan area and not out in the smaller communities, that connect students to higher education, which are located in the central area as opposed to being distributed everywhere. And so I'm just really resonating with the whole idea of connection and the important connection of things that make us healthier and fulfill the needs of our county in terms of education, in terms of job creation, all of that. It's going to require a network and real prioritization of making people connect to the things that are absolutely essential for them that they're not connected to now. My husband's a doctor, and he worked in a clinic at community hospital for years and years, and lots of his patients that lived in the rural communities would miss appointments because they couldn't get there.
Yeah.
And there's a real tragedy, a real health tragedy, a real human tragedy about that. And some of it was public transportation needs, and some of it was just roads, that weren't maintained well enough to accommodate their cars.
So
At
let me
any
ask-
rate,
No, I think it's,
just
it's a good, it's
the
a good point.
networking and the connectivity just is resonating with me.
So we're gonna talk about this for just a few more minutes, and then we're gonna move into the priorities. And so the reason I'm saying it that way is when we won't be done, we'll continue to work on it. But some of the things you're talking about could be the priorities, like this is our vision, but now if we have priorities, from what I'm hearing you guys say, maybe one of those priorities is healthier communities connecting people with services through transportation investments. I want to be very careful to make sure everybody understands we're a transportation measure, not a health and human services measure, but these are connected. You know, great example up in Tahoe, who would thunk it? They have exactly one dentist that takes Medicare, Medicaid, and it's on the second floor of a building that has no stairs, no elevator. So if you're a senior, you've got to go to Reno to get any care. It's the most bizarre thing ever. But anyway, if we're okay with this, let me read this one more time, and then why don't we move on if we're all right? Yes, go ahead, Veronica.
Sorry, just a suggestion because I think I'm going where you're going is that maybe we don't wordsmith by committee, and it sounds like these big values that folks have brought up or that should go in a vision include a network that benefits all residents, that is equitable, it invests in existing communities, there's connectivity to basic services, education, jobs, healthcare, promotes community health and community resilience, provides for economic opportunity and shared prosperity, advances innovation, so that we don't get stuck in wordsmithing.
Yeah, and then we move on
and then we move on to priorities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly where I'm going, because I'm thinking, although I apparently have lost my feed. Brenda? I have it. It's not showing up in the room. Diane? Diane? Mommy? Okay. All right. While we work on the technical aspect, I do want to move on. And when I say move on, we're going to come back to it. So it's not like completely finish. But when we think about priorities, and I do a lot of work in strategic planning as well. And what I found is you work at an agency and they'll come up with like 20 goals. You can't have 20 goals. You'll never get anything done. Right, Mark? Oh God, you're killing me. But we want to try to come up with basically your top 4 or 5 priorities. And the reason I'm saying it that way is then with each priority, what does that look like? We just kind of touched on one. And then when we start looking at our allocations where we're going to put money in different places, then it starts to be fleshed out. So we heard from the public, overwhelmingly, the number one thing is roads. And then other things fall under it. So I'm wondering, we have roads, we have public transit, safety. And safety, as I think many of you mentioned, it goes across multiple things. It's not just one. Walkable cities, biking, connectivity. You could argue that walking and biking of alternate modes of transportation, it could be kinds of things. But for this group, what would be your top priority of what needs to go into this plan? Are you ready yet, Wyatt? Nope, not yet. Okay, all right.
Can I make?
Yes, absolutely.
You know what? I'm just thinking of everything that you guys are saying and priorities, because I'm looking at a Measure C since 1986, and I do feel that this has benefited the most affluent communities. I'm from the west side of Mendota. I grew up in Tranquility, so a lot of you, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have never been to Tranquility. I hope you have, because I know a lot of people in Fresno never been there. But I can tell you, I can ask somebody. I'm a former educator from the west side. You know, I've taught in a lot of those school districts. But I can tell you that I would ask kids in my classroom, have you ever been to Fresno? Everybody's been to Fresno. I taught at Central High School, Central District. A lot of them never been to Kerman. You know what I mean? And it's real close. So to me is, how do we balance the whole county and make it a priority where we're not forgetting our communities on the west side? You know what I mean? Because I really feel in my heart that, those communities have been forgotten.
So what I'm hearing you say is you're talking about the equitable investment in communities throughout the county. So equity is a big thing.
And balance,
Okay.
Look where the monies have gone in the past. How can we make it to the other parts of the county? Because we always get arguments all the time. Well, every $2 you get a cent. Well, guess what? All of us come to Fresno and spend our money here from those communities. You guys know it. Fresno doesn't go to San Joaquin and spend their money, but San Joaquin does come over here. Mendota comes over here. Do you see what I'm talking about? Huron comes over here. Kalinga comes over here. So those are the things that I want to see us to look at globally, and have clarity of the whole county, not just pockets of the county. Because I hear people in power, well, I only worry about my district. You understand what I mean?
I absolutely do.
And no, it should be, if we're going to serve the county, or if this committee serve, let's serve the whole county and balance it out with equity. And let's look at where the monies have gone before and who's been forgotten. You know what I mean? And
So,
that's,
yeah, and one of the things, I mean, and I see Karen and Chuck, and I kind of want to go to you guys online. I know you're tuned in, but we haven't heard from you yet. And I'm curious your thoughts, because I think most of you know, if you've done the math, the city of Fresno, the city of Clovis are the highest concentration of people, right? And so by people, they're also paying the most in terms of the taxes and everything. So currently, the way that things are distributed, and we'll talk about this more later, but I'm just curious, Chuck, for you and for Karen, what would be your priorities, your top priority based on what you've experienced?
Thank you for that. I can go first. Just like we said last week, it's complete streets and roads. I'm going to default to the fact that this is a transportation measure, and it should stay that way, with maybe modifications down the line. My whole thing is getting a bond that will pass, and then forgive me, but this exercise here, I find it difficult to follow. But I will always advocate for complete streets and roads, safe roads. You have to fix the potholes. It's a transportation measure. I try not to forget that.
Okay. And when you're saying roads, I think we've kind of talked about this before, your priority would be actually the repair, maintenance, care, and love of our road network.
Yes, you can put it in those terms. Yes, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, Karen.
I'm just gonna ditto what Chuck said. I'm still at the 80 or 90% on roads. Nothing moves without good roads. So, and we are way behind. It'd take us years just to catch up with the roads, and particularly with heavier vehicles and different kinds of vehicles on the road today. So nothing moves, goods or people move without good roads.
Okay, Wendy.
I'm still firm on roads. I mean, I come from a farming community, and we take a good hit, especially when the weather is inclement and the roads soften up. They just chew up our roads, the heavy equipment, and it's just a constant. We're just constantly fixing that, but it just seems like we're kind of. I don't know who said that, but we are on the west side. We are neglected.
SP's nodding his head. I don't know if you can see him, but he's definitely nodding really big right now.
Yeah, I'm with you, brother.
We hope you get to meet soon. Jen, you're down in Kingsburg. What's your thought?
Yeah, I think I love what everyone's talking about today. Keeping Measure C balanced, and funds should serve everyone. Of course, obviously fixing the roads that need fixing, not just roads in wealthier areas, and investing more in green transportation, like the biking and walkable spaces, making sure rural communities aren't left out, and prioritizing accessibility for people with disabilities, seniors, and anyone else who depends on public transit. But I just think it should be a balanced thing.
Okay. So just on what I'm hearing so far, let's say we've got one priority, we can wordsmith it, but one is, around roads investment, fix the roads. And there might be one that is sort of bike ped alternative modes, which might be your e-bikes, might be other things, but just other things. And then I'm hearing accessibility and connections, which can be for transit. It could be for all kinds of things. Connections keeps coming up, and just being able to be connected in general. Can anybody come up with I'm gonna maybe Sarah come up with an idea? Sarah's like, come on, you're connecting your kids to Reed College. I know that's really important down there, right? So tell me about how would connections, how would you prioritize that as an area?
As I've been listening to everything like throughout the 4 weeks, this really seems like a math problem.
Yeah.
You know, we learned last week 60% just is needed just to maintain the roads. So that only leaves us 40% to do all of this that you guys want to do. And that seems a little impossible. It also seems like there are cities that are being neglected from what I'm hearing. So is there a report or a study that's been done to see how many of the cities are below, you know, like, I'm trying to word this right.
Let me help you because I think I know where you're going with this. So in the cities, and we saw this last week and you're going to all see it again next week. The average pavement condition here in the county is about 65. In some of our smaller jurisdictions where they have really bad roads, it can be down in the 40s.
Yeah.
And that's also true in some of the areas of the county, in the unincorporated areas. What we learned last week, a independent firm looked at a pavement condition study, and it would take at 60% of if 60% of the measure was go, that's what you would do to just maintain what we have right now. We're going to talk about that next week, so we don't need to get into there now. But I think for the now question is sort of like when you're looking at these different priorities, and we'll sort out the dollar amounts later, not today.
Yeah.
But we do need to identify where the priorities are. And I know we've talked about the roads, but we also know there are other, shall we say, competing interests.
Yeah.
And that's where we got to figure out.
And that's my question is there a way to find out which of these rural communities are maybe suffering the most?
Yes.
Or
yes.
how we
Yeah.
prioritize money to, like, Reedley's roads are pretty.
Well, and that's another, again, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves,
Yeah.
but when we start talking about the allocations as an example, allocation by agency, one of the things that was in a previous and have been in other measures, some of the larger jurisdictions may be willing to provide, we call it a floor, to some of the smaller jurisdictions, so they have a slightly more money that they can count on every year. And that was actually in the 2022 measure. Now it might happen again. I don't know. You'll talk about that later. But coming back to the idea of just the priorities, it sounded like from what the public said and from what I'm hearing you guys, that having some accommodation for bicycle, pedestrian trails, this sort of thing, healthy communities is important. If it's not, tell me now, but I'd love to hear more from your thoughts on that.
And can I jump in on this? Yeah, I absolutely think it is important. So I work with young people across Fresno and Fresno County. And public, they're students. And, a few years ago, they went on the buses, Fresno buses, fax buses, and they did a survey. And many of our students rely on public transportation, not just to get to school, right, but to get to appointments, to get to their jobs, right? And it's to also connect with their friends. One of the things that came out during the pandemic, or after the pandemic, was the sense of isolationism. And folks have talked about this in this space already, about connectivity. It's also about connecting folks, right, to their families, to friends across the county. That's really important, I think, to the mental health part of it too, right? I'm a runner, right? Not by choice, but by health, right? And so my family's lived in Southeast Fresno for 30 years, right? And I've been running, and there's trails that will come in, and I'm not oblivious to the fact that because there's a lot of development, but folks use it. I go jogging at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I go across these paths, and I'm running like 7 miles, right? So I get around. And so I see folks walking paths. I see folks using paths at all points of the day, even in the 100-degree heat. So folks are using, right, these different systems, right, for their health, for their benefits. And I think it's there, right? It's just a matter of, like, I think folks have talked about this, the equity. Can we bring it to these communities, right, that have been paying into this for decades, and why they should also be benefiting from this?
Okay. So, and then taking this back a second here, when we think about the priorities, if you thought about it not by the mode, right, but by the end result. So we talk about healthy communities. That means if that's a priority, then under healthy communities, you're allocating funds for bike, pedestrian, trails, that sort of thing. That becomes a thing. If safety as a category is a priority, then you're allocating funding for safe routes to schools, lighting, that sort of thing. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Well, here again, a lot of things are not mutually exclusive. I'm going to repeat what I said probably half an hour ago. I would agree the highest priority is streets and roads, because once again, bicyclists, and particularly now with e-bikes, which extend the range of bicycling, we want well-maintained streets and roads, but they have to be safe. When you build a new street and roads, which I think need to be downgraded, I'm not in favor of building new streets and roads under this plan. But if we do build any new streets and roads, they have to include bicycle accommodations and a full build out of sidewalks. When we rehabilitate an existing street and roads, if we do a full reconstruction or rehabilitation or repavement, like they do in the city of Fresno, they study to see whether or not they can, as part of that rehabilitation, include bike lanes. And in many instances in the city of Fresno, in the past decade, they do what's called a road diet. There's a project now on Peach Avenue, south of the airport. They turned that into a complete streets project. They're putting in a class 4 cycle track where it did not exist before. They just had conventional class 2 bike lanes. So they actually they actually study when we do a repave job, can we do a road diet to incorporate it? So here again, a lot of times these things are not mutually exclusive. When you repave, you can actually do a feasibility study, and if your traffic volumes are low enough, you can do a road diet and incorporate it.
Yep.
So here again, yes, I would say prioritize streets and roads, but accessibility and safety, incorporate bicycle lanes, bicycle facilities where possible, put in ADA ramps as part of that repaving project. Put in ADA ramps, and once again, part of that repaving project, if you get the funds, put in rectangular flashing beacons or hawk signals to make it safer for kids to get to schools.
Sure. Pastor Jones, you've been noticeably quiet. Do you have anything to jump in here with?
Well, I'm a born and raised West Fresno. How many of y'all ride the bus? Y'all been on the bus system? So I've been in a wheelchair, so I know how that experience. I know for my community where we are, the bus stops, the coverings, the tops, there's really none. So they're out there in front of the shade, burning up. I have a bus stop in front of my church and there's no shade there. The sidewalks, they just fixed the streets, and I think that's because of pressure. But across Jensen, back going towards my grandma's house and all that, the roads are still messed up. I work at Gaston, so I've seen stoplight traffic, the schools, all that stuff. It's not safe. So that's really how I started working at the school for safe passage, picking up some of the kids, taking them home, make sure they got there safe. But the lighting at night is dark, right? It's terrible. Our youth, when it's time, maybe they don't have jobs in West Fresno, so they have to get on the bus to go across town to get a job. And the routes, sometimes they're late because they run at a certain time, so they can be caught up and miss jobs and miss opportunities because they don't have that. And I live across town. I live off of Herndon, but I work in West Fresno. So you do see the difference in commute when you transfer in and out. You can tell there's a lack of investment in certain parts of town. So I keep hearing the word equitable and equity, but does that mean equal?
That's a great question.
I would think everybody gets an equal share in what that prize is. So I think that would be my stake and what I have to say.
So let me ask the group, and again, we're not going to get into percentages. I keep saying that because I'm trying to keep us on track, doing the best I can. I think sometimes when people think about priorities, your first jump is to the mode, like the priority is transit or the priority is road. And I'd like you to think for a second about I think we've established that prioritizing the local streets and roads network, that everybody's on the same page, that that is something that we want. Anybody disagree with that? Okay. If that's our first priority, then rather than thinking about the modes, I've got these that you kept saying: healthy communities, safety, accessibility, connectivity, and equity. And equity is not the same as equality. Have you ever seen that great thing with the bicycles or the ballpark? You know, it's very different. But if you have equity or equitable distribution as one of your priorities, right, then that's going to influence how we develop, I'm going to say, the implementing guidelines and potentially how we look at allocation. But I think you were mentioning as well, there's also a fairness factor. And, you know, let's be clear, most people that live in Fresno County, live in Fresno proper, live in Clovis proper, and live in highly urban areas. So we have to be careful to construct something that is fair to them as well, right? And isn't unequitable in the other way, right? It'd be great if we had endless money, but we don't. So I'm curious with these four things, what's the reaction to that? Does that, we can start filling in some lines on that, but does this make sense to everybody to think about it more in those terms? Veronica, what do you think?
I think, did anybody else want to weigh in before you started talking? After Pastor Joby Jones? No? Otherwise, okay. I too think that they would be in broad. I think we're moving into the categories discussion and going. I know that we all want to go there, and it's probably easy to go there, and we're all itching at that, but we're not there. When we haven't even seen the data yet, the full data set around categories and allocation. So I would ask all of us to wait to see that and not scratch that itch, because we're all, including myself, want to go there. And I think that the highlights should be around sort of when we talk about how we want Measure C, less about, as you said, the mode, more about we want to invest in healthy communities. We want to invest in community health and well-being. We want to invest in people's ability to get to where they need to go via multiple modes: walk, bike, transit. We all agree that local streets are a big priority. There's no question about that. And we've heard it across the board. And then we've also heard we want to invest in sort of community infrastructure in existing communities, sort of the places where we don't have the sidewalks, where we don't have curb and gutter crosswalks or safe routes to school. That's what I see as the big priorities based on what everybody has said, and not capture it as like bike and ped or roads, because I think we're going into the category discussion. And if we talk high level in the way that I've described it, I think that sets us up nicely to think our next conversation, where we will talk about categories, like what categories fit within that based on the public input and data that we've received.
So that's why I'm asking these four that are not modal. This is healthy communities, safety, accessibility, connections or connectivity, and equity being as priority themes.
Yeah, I would it's sort of community health and well-being, community health and community resilience, accessibility and reliability. What was the other one I said? Allowing for transformation and innovation. And there was another one. Someone used a phrase. I'm trying to take notes. Someone used a frame that I thought was great. At community infrastructure. Investing in existing communities. So like as a priority, we're going to invest in what already exists.
So we're putting that right now.
I know it's in the vision, but still like in the category, not the categories, I'm sorry, the major priorities, I think that gets at that. Ability of people to get to where they need to go.
Okay, community health and resilience. I mean, safety, I think everybody is on board with that, right? Safety, ensuring. Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, let me add a couple of terms that might capsulize some of this for you. By having a good network that gives us the ability to get emergency services to the individual, fire, police, medical. It also allows individuals, wherever they might be, to transport themselves to medical care, which has been brought up, etc. It may not be the most convenient or right next door, but it gets you on a path where you can follow that path and get you there. Public safety. So the network needs to be built safely. And then above all else, if we don't have a transportation network that services our commerce, we can't pay for anything. So you have to have the ability to support commerce in not only the major cities, the smaller cities, but out in the rural area where our crops are grown. And then to use an example of inequity that's been talked about, Mendota as getting their fair share. If you live in Dunlap, Mendota gets one hell of a share. So you have to think of the whole system. And I know we're not to the formulaic portions yet, but many, many people have worked on the formula and tried to make it equitable for years. We've got what we got for this one, and the prior measure may not be perfect, but it is what it is. So I wanted to share the emergency services and commerce aspect to you.
So I've got commerce, I'm putting that up in the local roads portion of the program at the moment. And then I've got in community health and resilience, one of the things that would feed into that is accessibility and proximity to emergency services, medical services, right? Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to get some clarification on what we mean by priorities, because I heard you say it as outcomes, but roads are not outcomes.
No,
they're-
it's the priority of what you think are most important.
Okay, I understood at one point as outcomes and not mode. Like roads are, it's infrastructure for an outcome. And so it just seems a little incongruent with everything else that's here. It's one piece of transportation infrastructure, but I don't understand it as fitting with these other priorities that are more broadly about outcomes. Roads to me are not an outcome; they're a vehicle for outcomes. So I'm confused.
No, that's it. It's a good point. The context I'm trying to go at it right now and help me do it better is that we know that most respondents in all the different areas prioritize the local road infrastructure. That was the most important thing. And so setting that aside as the most important thing, that's a little different because that supports all the other modes is what I'm hearing, right? Whereas these other things, community health and resilience, that has elements of these other modes that are in it. So if we're going to be talking about, being able to have accessibility to bike paths, walking paths, trails, that sort of thing. So I see what you're saying. It's kind of a round hole, square peg situation, but I'm not sure how else to call that out as a priority, which it clearly is for, most of the folks that responded. Does anybody have any ideas about that? About another way we could put it?
I like the idea where you were going, which is outcome folk. Obviously, the streets and roads are part of that. Like building community health is investing in local, like the vehicle to build community health is investing in local streets and roads and people's ability. So it could be access to opportunity. I totally understand what Dr. Kral is talking about in terms of there is a incongruence here where on one end we are prioritizing it by specifically calling the type of mode and then talking about community health and well-being as just as an example of something different. So I would suggest taking that out and focusing on ultimately what we hope all the investments, whatever those investments end up being in the measure by category, they're going to lead to X, Y, Z. So they're going to lead to community health. They're going to lead to access to opportunity. They're going to lead to investing equitably, real good public health. And another way to frame that, but that's how I would frame the priorities, because right now I'm worried that we're ranking the categories and we're not even there yet.
No, I hear what you're saying. I just want to make sure that we're not ignoring and Dr. Pacheco, can I ping you for a second? No, wrong, right? I know if you've been hearing, you've been listening to all this as well. And I mean, we've talked about this. I'm curious about your suggestion about how we could characterize, just your thoughts on how we could characterize a priority of being the local road network, which clearly was stated by many, many people. I'm afraid if we don't mention it in some way, we're going to get kicked back. That's just my 2 cents.
I don't think we're taking away from it at all. I think we're just saying here are the priorities, streets, and I think everybody in this room, unless I'm wrong, agrees that local streets and roads are a priority. Like that will be a category in and of itself. It doesn't necessarily need to be named as like, here are the broad outcomes that we want to see come out of Measure C. I think that's what, without putting words in your mouth, that's what you're saying. Okay.
Can I
Yes,
hop
please.
in with this? So maybe we need to step back and ask, why are roads important? Why are local roads important? And then when we answer that question, why are local roads important? Then we know what the priority is.
That's a good
And
one.
so if we can answer that question, why our roads are important, then that gives us what the priority is. I'd also ask, do we think that our transportation system is acceptable currently? And so if we agree that our current transportation infrastructure is not acceptable, then how is this next version of Measure C going to make it acceptable? And hopefully more than just acceptable. How about terrific, fantastic? Have you heard about Fresno County's transportation infrastructure? And what I hear is us saying, we need to pay for the stuff, for the broken way that we've been doing it thus far, because our way of doing it is broken and we need to pay for it to be fixed. So one, I think the step back is why are roads a priority? And then let's focus on that. But what I think, is it Scott from CVCF? What I think I heard Scott saying is, let's transform our infrastructure so that in 30 years, we're not in the same situation that we are now. So that for me sounds like a priority other than just roads. I have something.
Okay, go ahead, Wyatt. I've been holding out for you.
Can you guys explain what you mean by our transportation's broken? Because really all I'm hearing is people know that we need to fix our roads, but they think that we need to, I just don't think you guys like cars and roads,
So
just in general. So I'm a little lost because I think everyone should take a step back to the future or back in the past. And as we move forward into the future and take a look at what Measure C was originated for and what the people of this valley voted for originally and the thought that they wanted moving forward. And it did get a little watered down in 96. And we've done a bunch of great things with it. And what I mean by watered down is that's when we started doing some of the trails and some of the different things, because it didn't originate for that. So I'm a little confused with the conversation. Just going to put that out there because I just don't understand what you guys mean by all this multimodal and
Go back
all
to
that
it,
stuff.
and then we'll.
Yeah.
I'll respond quickly to what I've heard people say why is wrong with our infrastructure is one, it's really expensive. It's expensive to maintain. That's why people are complaining about the roads. We can't afford to maintain our infrastructure as a city. We can't afford it. It's really expensive as a community member to have a car and to maintain it, and to pay the state to all insurance, oil changes, etc. That's really expensive. Again, we have the worst air quality in the country. That's why it's not working. It's ugly. From the most of our roads are really ugly. When we drive around, it's really ugly. There's some places that are really pretty. My church is on a really pretty road on Van Ness Boulevard. It's beautiful. There's a strip of green grass right down the middle that used to be used for public transportation. Now it's just used for beautification. So I would say there's a long list of things that people are complaining about.
So I want to address that just a little bit. So from a different standpoint, our current road network value, this is the value of the streets and roads all together, is $6 billion, right? And so one approach we might take on this, because I think we've heard the same thing. When people are talking to us, and there's a lot of great ideas out here, they're talking about the amount of time they had to spend in traffic. They're talking about the quality of the roads. People are saying literally like, I can't ride my bike. It's not safe. There's so many potholes. I'm getting a flat tire. And I wonder if another way to look at this might be as a priority, you know, preserving the integrity of our $6 billion investment in our local road network. Because I hear what you're saying, which is basically some of this stuff has just gone, you know, it's bad. Others have said, well, we just need to have more, you know, infrastructure, but I don't, that's not really what we heard. We heard, and I'll
Right.
let you.
Yeah, and I wanted to get into a little bit. I mean, we'll talk more in depth next week, but when we talk to folks about this specific question around roads, and when we said like roads came up as a top priority, what we meant was we asked it in a couple of different ways. When we said improvements, people said fix potholes and repair damaged streets and roads. We did give them the option of building other networks. We asked in different ways. And so when we talked about, we gave them the option to think about infrastructure improvements on their own. And we broke that up in terms of repairing and maintaining roads, or improving bike lanes, trails, and sidewalks, or increasing freeway highway access. And when we broke down those findings, again, what we found was that overwhelmingly, when it comes to infrastructure, people are talking about repairing and maintaining existing roads. And actually, and again, we can get more into this data next week too, but the second thing was about improving bike lanes, trails, and sidewalks, and the last was about increasing freeway and highway access. So for our data, when we heard from around in the survey data alone, almost 700 people, and then overall in the qualitative, 1,000 folks. Those are the themes that rise up to the top in terms of when we're saying, what do people think about roads? It's about maintaining the existing roads, and it's very much about fixing.
And I would say our data doubles that. It is completely reinforced. So that was top of mind for folks. To be honest, I don't think it takes away from any of the things you're talking about in terms of the bike, pedestrian, all these other things. But I think that we have to find, in order to be reflective of what people have asked for, and that's again your call, but there should be some nod to and I don't know how to put it. I put another way there, you know, whether it's preservation of the local road network, improvement of the local road network. Yeah, sorry, I can say. Oh, sorry, pardon me, Dr. Call.
Sorry, because I feel like I may have started this. I just want to be super clear that I'm not saying let's kick roads out of this conversation. I just thought that the roads come in a different phase in the conversation. I thought right now we're talking about the what, and then we'll talk about the how. And the how is where when people are saying it's the roads, I need the roads to get to my job, to get to school, like to safely ride my bike. Like that's when we can talk about that. But right now it's the what, like what do they want for their lives? What do they want for their community?
To your comment, when people talked about roads and we asked explain, it was around these larger themes like connectivity and safety. So that is really where people were thinking about roads. It really was, and it has to do, again, to what end? It wasn't just to be able to drive their car. It was to do the things that they wanted to do in their communities, walk, ride their bike,
So
ride
I
the
guess
bus,
what we
et cetera, et
could
cetera.
do is if we don't put this in, and just out of curiosity, just quick show of hands, and I'm looking at you on the internet as well here. Just quick show of hands. We're not formal right now, but how many think that there should be a specific priority aside for roads as a standalone? Like we have with community health and others. Just a quick show of hands. So we're looking right here like, yeah, local roads, but well, let me put it a different way. Would you guys be okay with just moving roads under community health and resilience and under safety and all those things being investments of roads would be part of those pieces? Do you understand what I mean? It's like, we're talking about what the overall, I think what Veronica was saying, we're talking about the overall priorities. And so I'm just going to go back here to safety. If safety is a priority, then repairing the roads so that you don't have potholes and whatnot is part of that ilk, right? Is that where we're going?
Yeah, connectivity and
Okay.
safety, I
Okay.
think were the words Tanya used right now.
Okay, perfect. All right, that we can easily do. Yeah.
Subheading under accessibility and connectivity. I mean, how do you connect? How do you access things? Roads, that's
Yeah.
the first item. How do we connect?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Kendall, that'll go a lot with our phase 2 data as well. When we actually asked people to rank, it was around connectivity. When we asked them to rank, that was the highest piece.
Okay, so we'll take that out as its own thing. And then right now we've got 4 priorities, one being community health and resilience, safety. I took that as a global safety, not just one mode, but all things, right? Accessibility and that should be connectivity, and connectivity for all, which in the context would mean regardless of physical disability, income, or location, physical location, right? And then the last one that we have right now is equitable investments and preservation of equitable investments. We probably don't need to have it all those. Equitable investments or equitable application of funds, or just equity in general. How would you guys want to word that? Or how would you set that aside? A lot of folks have talked about equity. Any thoughts? Well, let me do this. It's 4:44 now. We're going to be done at 5:30. Why don't we take a quick 5-minute break, bathroom break, and then we'll come back and power out this last little bit and then hopefully end on a high note. Is that all right with everybody? Okay, 5 minutes. It's like 4:44 now. Let's plan on getting back here, 5:50 or sorry, 4:50-ish. Thank you. Okay, folks, if we can start settling back in here. Come on back.
I mean, I think the voters are care about it. It really does the work. And, you know, I don't think
Okay, I want to just, a couple things that we've been asked by some folks, the audience at home and others, when you do speak, try to get closer to the microphone. If you're not loud like me, get closer. So we've got about a half hour left. I want to tell you a couple things. One, those of you that do not have binders, I mean, you're new to this group, right? The team is just finishing up. There's quite a lot of information in them, and we'll be handing those out tonight, as well as today's presentation on materials that'll be coming to you. Also moving forward, every time we finish a meeting within about 24, 48 hours, you're going to get meeting minutes. You're going to get the minutes. We've already got those for the previous meeting. So all of you that are new, you'll get those as well. And then the final piece on that is that we are going to go today, and we're going to ask you to actually take a vote. I mentioned earlier, 70% in terms of recommendations. So what I'd like to do for the next bit of time here is go back to our vision statement and kind of talk about that for a moment, and then come back to the, where did it, oh, don't tell me. Hold on here. I had this all up there and then it is not showing up, which is just going to be really depressing because it was really good. No, nope. Go this the old-fashioned way. Give this just a moment. Give me a see here. Had it written out and it was looking good and I did not save it correctly. So let me just open this up again.
Kendall, on your conversation,
There it went.
are you part of the discussion is maybe changing the time of these meetings?
Yes, that was, and thank you for bringing that up. So let me get through this thing first and then we'll end with that. So I'm going to read this again now that I found it. My heart has started beating once again. So I want to point out, this is a snapshot of tonight. We're going to ask you to weigh in on first the vision, and we can do a little wordsmithing you like. This is not the end all be all. You've got another, 5 or 6 meetings, but we're going to take this to the board and say, this is kind of what the steering committee came up with. So this would be the vision statement and then these areas that we just talked about in terms of priorities. We're not going to go through the entire list because as we fill in all these other pieces, we'll be adding things into there, right? But if you feel like something's glaring missing, now is the time. So let me read this to you. And again, this is going back to, this can be aspirational, and just, feel free to say what I've left out. But the way it sets up right now, vision, Measure C should support a transformative multimodal transportation network that invests in existing communities, promotes economic opportunities and local job creation, positions us for transportation innovations, and provides equitable access to transportation funding and safe, accessible services for all residents across all modalities. This would serve as the foundation for creating healthier communities. Okay, anybody want to blast it or throw things at it? And again, I know we're going to make tweaks later, and I'll send this to everybody in case you want to wordsmith it on your own. But does the group feel like this does capture what we talked about today and is reflective? And if it is, then what I'd like to do is, starting with Cher, just kind of go around and hear a quick, yay or nay, like yes or no, if you're okay with it, knowing you're going to get to see it again, right? But just like for tonight's meeting, which is going to make some people look so happy by the end of the day. So let's start with you, Cher. As this sits today, give me just a yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, just come right around.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. No. Okay, one no.
Yes.
Yes. Yes with a question.
Okay.
So promotes economic opportunities, local job creation and position. Okay. So does that mean because we have an improved network, transportation network, people have more opportunities to and access to jobs?
Yes.
Okay. And then job creation, is that like in the communities? How does transportation, unless you work in a construction?
So a lot of companies, who's here from the chamber? I'm kidding. Scott, would you like to just mention a little bit the importance of the transportation network for having new businesses move here, do business here, jobs in general?
I think it kind of goes without saying.
Can you turn your mic on? And
I think most of that goes without saying. If the roads are not serviceable, businesses will go to communities where they are.
yeah,
Okay. I just wanted to be.
it's kind of like laying out the bones for it, right? Making sure that that happens. Okay.
I'm a yes.
Okay. Continue around, David.
Yes.
I can't see her. Oh, Dr. Diaz?
Yes.
Okay, with your Mikey thing.
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
The question is this the,
is this for the vision? Okay, we're not doing categories now, we're just doing the vision. Can you live with it? For now.
yeah, for now, I think that that people see this as a roads tax and that getting too much flavor in the mission statement that will cause people not to vote for it, but yes.
And I would caution everyone, let's wait and see how the category investments come out, because at the end of the day, that's what they're going to go for. That's what they're going to look at first. Go ahead, Wyatt.
That reasoning and no.
Okay.
Yes for now.
Yes for now? Okay. I thought you said yes for no, and I was going to wait. We have to have a talk. Of course.
Where will this be read? So
Like,
where are people going to read this?
Once this is out of this group, it'll be posted onto the website. It'll be here at the Fresno Council of Governments next week. And as we are developing the materials, and again, we're probably going to have to refine this and wordsmith it a bit, but now this becomes part of the foundation of writing the expenditure plan and the other pieces. And it will theoretically be something, as we talk next week, how do your decisions for allocating funds support this? Okay. Mark?
Yes, this reflects tonight's conversation.
Veronica?
Yes, though I would like to edit it a bit, but it's fine. Yes.
Okay. Okay, yes, Lee?
Yes, that'd be considered a first draft.
Yes,
if you
I would
will.
consider this a first
Yeah,
draft.
okay.
We'll have an opportunity to adjust.
Yeah, that's
There's
fine
gonna
for a
be
first draft.
things. Yes, go ahead. Mark.
Yes.
Yes.
Nick?
First draft, yes.
Okay, thank you. Kay?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Sarah?
Yes, this is consistent with what we talked about.
Okay. Wendy?
I agree. First draft, yes.
Chuck?
I'm going to say no. In not, I don't have. I'm a very, very. I'm concerned. Why this is even going to be made public. Some people are going to read this as this is our mission statement, that this is what we're going to do.
Let me help you a little bit on the heartburn with that. As our meeting for categories takes place before the meeting where this would be shown on the 31st, both of those bits of information will be shared.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing is this is going to go to the public. I mean, pretty soon. I don't know about timeline, but I'm a definite no on this.
So it's a very, this isn't a final for like, here's this is part of the notes of this meeting. We will establish it as a draft.
When is this going to be made public? Who outside of this room, when is the first opportunity for somebody outside of this room to read this?
It'll probably be, it should be part of the minutes that are generated from this meeting, but we will.
And those minutes are public?
Those minutes are public.
I don't even think it should go that far, but I'm a no.
Okay. Jen?
Yes.
Okay, so if my count was right, we had 1, 2, 3, 4. Did we have a fifth no over here? I think we have 4 no's. Is that right? Okay, so that means that with the number that we have in here today, that is enough to move it forward. I want to be clear, it's not the end. Okay, it is absolutely
Kendall?
not the end. Yes, ma'am.
Karen's here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a no.
Okay.
And Chuck
5
and I are not related, so.
Okay. 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 Let me ask this now about, this is just general priorities. We're going to fill this in as we move through, but general priorities based on what I heard today: community health and resilience, safety, accessibility for all, and equity being, pardon me, being the priority categories that we fill in everything else underneath that. Same question, is something missing? Is it wrong? Is it right? Is this something you can live with? Again, for the short term, Shara, but again, starting with you. Yep. Yep.
Sorry, you want to vote on these as the priorities?
Yep.
Oh, I have a suggestion during the break. Given how important local streets and roads are for everybody, I would just make it in the subs very clear that what we mean are local streets and roads, because everybody in this room agrees that that's a priority. So just so that, you know, this isn't like they took road. This is not the narrative that we took roads off the table.
Yes.
Or that anybody in this room took roads off the table. That everybody here, unless someone is like, no, that anyway, that it's important to do that as
Yeah,
as a
let me add
sub.
those in. I didn't, and I apologize. Thank you for pointing that out. Because it is, there's going to be more to it than this, to be honest. There has to be, because we've got to have more of a discussion. We're not going to be able to get into all that today. But, you know, for example, for Pastor Jones' question, like we talk about equity, we're going to have to define what that looks like, right? And we're going to have to define policies and implementation guidelines. But I do think for now, it's important to, in the context of this, to point out that local streets and roads are integral to every single one of these. Yes, go ahead.
Can I add one more in priorities? Affordability, to be afford. This is my reasoning. I am from Organización Las Panchas, and I know this is the first time for me and most of you that meet me for the first time, but we are working with different communities, different cities in the Fresno County. One of them is Mendota. And one of the things that it caught my attention, and I got very involved in Measure C, inviting people to come to attend these meetings, is because they were telling us a lot of this city, specifically Mendota, have big group of special needs kids. So one of the parents, they had to be home to take those kids. And transportation is very important to them. And it's not public transportation for them to come, you know, Mendota has to come here for doctor's appointments. And like I said, it's only one parent who is working, paying $50 per a ride to bring or make that the doctor's appointment is very expensive.
Let me ask you this in the same kind of way that we talked about roads. It seems like affordability could come under accessibility and connectivity for all, because affordability is a part of that. So I don't necessarily think it needs to be, is everyone in agreement with that? Okay. And we're probably going to fill in more of these things, by the way, in the coming weeks, right? But with that, you're okay with that? Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions or additions? Yes, go ahead, Sarah.
I did have a question. Wyatt had mentioned something earlier about how this started off as a roads bill, and you said that it transformed into to more. Can you explain that?
So the percentages of what went out changed a little bit in 96. I mean, we'd have to go back and look at everything, but it moved a little bit more towards like trails, walking past, different things of that nature. I think it was more expenditure in FCTA for transportation, some things of that. So it moved. We built the Highway 1A, we built 168, we did improvements to 41. A lot of the things that it originated for to make our community what it is today. And then also some roads going out to some of the other communities. But the last one did gear around more of the transportation, some of the things we're talking about, and it kind of went away from these access points that we're talking about for some of these other communities, the larger roads, the better roads to get to and from Fresno, because they need to get here for, you know, the kids and things of that nature. So that's what changed.
Okay.
And then that's why we're struggling to keep up with what everybody's talking about here, but we keep going back to these things of like adding more money into this transportation and stuff. That doesn't make much sense.
Yeah,
That's
because
what I-
when Simon had mentioned, you know, he thought the roads were broken, I feel more that they're suffering. They don't have enough funding to maintain what we need. So when you brought that up, like, did we have enough before we added all of
It's
these?
a really good question, and to be honest, it's also one that is top of mind for most of the San Joaquin Valley. It's not just us, okay? But what we are going to look at next week, and we'll show you, is like what the original pie looked like, what it looked like when it was renewed in 2006, and you know what was on 2022, which by the way, you know, got 58%, and then what you guys come up with. We're also, you may remember, and you guys can all see this in your binders, we have a comparison of all of the other Valley COGs and other similar groups of sort of how they allocate their money. Because I mean, we can't look the same as Portland or, you know, Newport Beach. It's not the same. So we have rural needs, anyway. So that is all part of the context when we're talking about the investments next week. But I think what Wyatt was trying to point out is initially this was a roads period. And then during the 80s and a little bit later, you know, as things moved on for more transit and multimodal, and when funding became available for that, a lot of measures changed to adapt to that. And we heard a little bit about that in some of our recent workshops, you know. So anyway, this is your chance to remake it, to figure it out. But I think, you know, the $10 billion infrastructure that came in, the money that came in, it definitely has made an impact. And the question is, you know, what you want to do with the next 15 billion if it comes in, and what are their priorities? So that's the point. And I'm prepared. The next two meetings are going to be spirited.
Yeah, exactly. Because the voters want better streets. And
No,
at
we'll
the
be
end of
we'll
the
be
day-
sharing that data. But for tonight, I'm still hopeful. At 5:12. Are there any other comments about these? Yes, go right ahead, Evelyn.
Hi, if I may, I actually liked the way you formatted where you just changed it to equity, but you formally had it as equitable investments. And I think that captured a lot of the sentiments that were discussed today. So I would actually change it to equitable investments, and I would also add rural communities under that.
Okay. So with those, and again, we're going to fill, and everybody, I'm sorry I did this wrong. This is Safe Routes to Schools, SRTS, that stands for Safe Routes to Schools. We didn't have, I don't know, Dr. Pacheco, you had the same thing. I don't think we went to a single anything where Safe Routes to Schools didn't come up. So, okay.
Does that also include some level of protection from heat, like trees or shade structure?
It can.
For safety.
That's, as an example, bus stops that are covered, bus stops that have, you know, not only shade, but also away from the elements, that sort of thing.
So it's in SRTS.
Safe Routes to Schools is specific to Safe Routes to Schools that are for children of all ages, by the way, including colleges.
Okay, we just need something from heat, like safety also, not only lighting, but also trees or shielding from heat, because excess heat is very dangerous.
I think that might go in the one above, the community health and resilience.
So it needs to go somewhere.
And it can. And again, for just for today, we're talking about the high level pieces, but
I'd call it a high level piece, but for
let's see, what would be the
heat?
I'm trying to think of a way to put that in there. Landscaping and what?
Yeah,
resilience. Okay.
Yeah, I will say that when people talked about shade in our first phase, they were talking about it within the context of shade walking to and from places, as well as shade by waiting at the bus stop, so actual shade structures. And so it was about getting to and from places, which is actually really consistent when we've looked at research on other measures around the country of similar demographics as ours that people use the idea of shade in that way. And there's an additional conversation around barriers, but that's another conversation.
Just want to make sure almost heading into the category section again. So just that what we're putting under here is sort of the description of what we mean by that priority. This is what, so that you can explain it to others. Yeah.
Correct. And we're not going to get into the minutia of all this stuff right now, because there will be other programs that we'll be discussing and saying, okay, well, that falls into this or that into the other. But this thematically, I think, captures. So we have community health and resilience, safety, accessibility and connectivity for all, and equitable investments as being the four main priority areas. I do think that is reflective of what came out of the outreach and what the discussion was today. So similarly, if we're okay with it, I'd like to go around the room and just get everybody's verbal on that. You know the drill. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, Cher, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Am I saying it correctly?
Sure.
Sure. So not like share, but
Sure.
Sure. Okay, like
Thank you.
sure. Okay.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes. Sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for putting streets and roads at the top of each of those categories. So yes.
Same, yes.
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 Well, no, yes.
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 Okay. She's asking, thinking, oh my goodness, could it happen? Wendy, we'll go in order. Wendy, Chuck, and then Jen, and then Karen. So Wendy,
Yes.
Chuck.
Forgive me, what are we voting on?
These are just the priorities. We laid out the priorities, and you may have heard both Scott and Wyatt note that we put local streets and roads under every single one of those as being the top priority for that area. So we have community health and resilience, safety, accessibility and connectivity for all, and equitable investments.
I'm going to stand on my original comment. I think it should all be local streets and roads. So unfortunately, it won't be unanimous. I'm going to say no.
Okay. Jen?
Yes.
Karen? Karen's muted.
I'm sorry. You guys are just getting way off the road, I would say. No.
Okay. Okay, it wasn't unanimous, but I'm going to say I feel pretty good about being only 2 no's. And again, the no's, I expect all you folks to know when we get together again, obviously, it's not going to be that close next week. Just saying. So I appreciate the fact that everybody kept an open mind and was here. I apologize. I'm actually madly texting Shada because she's got the, pardon me, the binders for those of you that I want to take off with later, but I do have a couple other things to mention. Just again, our upcoming schedule, and I think that's something that Lino mentioned. There was a request, and this is just a question. We can go either way. These meetings have been scheduled from basically 3 to 5:30. We'd like to know from you folks if that is a good time, or if your preference would be to meet later at, let's say, 5 o'clock and go 5 to 7:30 or another time. And so I just want to throw that out there and see what folks think. And the same thing for the folks that are online. Everything else would still be the same. You can be here in person or you can be online. So has everyone had a chance to kind of think about that for a second with these? The dates have not changed, just the times. So, oh, thank God. The quick show of hands. How many would prefer to have the meetings later in the day? You got Lino, Mona, 1, 2, 3. Online. Okay.
I'm indifferent, Kendall.
Okay. So, Lino, that's really, it's a problem for you though, right? Okay. And it's a problem for Mark? Mark, you?
No, other one.
No, I'm sorry, Mark Kepler, that's right. Yeah, so Mark Kepler can't make it, and I really hope he can on the 30th. So let me ask you this. He can only make it in the evening on the 30th. So let me ask you this, for just the meeting on the 30th, in order for us to try to be, I think he brings a lot to the table, but also just to give a little balance. Would you agree that we could meet at 5:30 on the 30th for that one, or sorry, 5:30, 6 o'clock? What do you think? 6 o'clock on the 30th for that one meeting, and then the rest of them? Huh? 5 o'clock, sorry, 5 o'clock on the 30th. 5 o'clock on the 30th for that meeting, and then we can go back to the regular times.
Kendall, what's the end time on that?
I'm sorry, that would be probably
7:30?
7:30.
Okay.
Yeah. 5:30 would be fine. Is 5:30 acceptable for the meeting on Wednesday, everybody? Just a nod, some sort of, proof of life? Okay.
Yes.
So, okay. So for the next meeting, and just the next meeting, we'll talk again next meeting and see where we are about where everybody's head's at. But the next meeting, then we will move that time to 5:30. For those of you that are new, this is the team that has been in the back room madly putting these books together. Yeah, exactly right. Also for those everybody gets a copy of tonight's presentation with all the information. And those of you that are new, please raise your hand so that they can give them to you. And then just a reminder, we have a number of community workshops that are coming up. All these are in your presentation materials. So we have Firebaugh on the 19th. Wait a minute, what is today? Firebaugh on the 19th, Reedley on the 22nd, virtual workshop on the 23rd, Fresno Clovis on the 24th, Huron on the 28th, West Fresno on the 29th, Selma on August 2nd, Yokuts Valley on August 7th, and then Auberry on the 8th. You are encouraged to go to these if you possibly can, any or all of them, and to, do other things.
Kendall?
Yes, ma'am.
It's Wendy. So our workshop's back on the table?
Wendy, which city are you from? Remind me again.
Firebaugh.
Firebaugh. Yeah, well, these are workshops. It's San Joaquin. It's the wrong one. Pardon me. It's San Joaquin. Sorry, my bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got happy there for a second.
Sorry. A reminder again, the Measure C website, very important, measurec2026.com. This is where we have the online build a plan poll where you can actually allocate funds per category. We encourage you to share that with everybody you know and have them get on there. Right now, we're edging up around 600-700. We're going to combine this, of course, with the Dr. Pacheco's information, but it's a really good exercise. It is multilingual, so whatever language you happen to speak, it'll translate for you in that thing. And we've got about 8 minutes left, and I just very, very, very quickly just top line. I know we have some different things there, but starting with Sher, I'm always starting with you tonight. Sorry. I just want to quickly go around the room and just get a quick pulse. I mean, good meeting. You're happy. We're good. Or we're not, or you hated it. I know we've got some concerns, but first time out, how'd we do?
A good conversation. Appreciate the perspectives across the room, right? Looking forward, right, to hearing more across, as the meetings move forward.
Okay. And I want to point out, Alexander, he's going to be a city council member someday. I mean, you're 18 now? Yeah. I love the fact that he's here. Okay, go ahead.
I thought the meeting was pretty good today. Probably better, one of the better ones, but besides the last four.
Yeah.
I wasn't here at the last one, but this is probably the best we've had. I'm just gonna try and keep my opinions for the next couple of meetings.
Okay.
I thought it was a great meeting because I look around and all of us have different perspectives, different experiences, and I think we're coming to the consensus that everybody wants the same thing for our Fresno County. So
It was cordial, so that was nice.
I'll take that.
It was a good dialogue.
Thank you. Okay, Lena.
I thought it was a good meeting, and I see nothing but potential for us to collaborate.
Same. I think it was a great start, and it's a great outlook to have right now.
I was happy.
I think it was good dialogue. I think we got a little bit off the rails there, a little bit of confusion, and now everybody wants to have that knee-jerk reaction about the misconceptions of pulling it back to the roads. And I think we'll get to that point to understand. And then that's when we can really argue. And that's when the road will, hit the road on that one or not. But it was good dialogue. Good. I'm glad it started.
That was a very good meeting, my first time. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you. And I learned a lot.
I'm hopeful.
I don't know the direction that we're trying to present to the public yet. So I guess I'm just have to wait and see.
I enjoyed the meeting. Great conversation. So I'm glad to be here.
Scott Miller's hopeful, so am I.
It was a good meeting.
Good for a consolidated meeting kickoff. I thought it was good.
Great, thanks.
I thought there was going to be like radical leftist presentations, and that didn't happen. So yeah, it was fine. That was a joke. That was a joke.
Nick did his best. Come on.
Off to a good start. Looking forward to the discussions later on.
No,
Go ahead.
it was a good meeting. Glad to have been here.
It was a good meeting. I do believe we're heading in the right direction.
Igual, confuso, pero fue una buena junta, pero también tengo esperanzas.
I feel the same, a bit confused, but I also have hope. So it was good.
Good meeting, lots of discussion. I did want to say, Pastor Jones, I did really like your statement about is equity equal? And I think we should remember that going forward. I really like that statement that you made. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. So going on to our Zoomers, I'm going to go Wendy, Chuck, Jen, and Karen. So Wendy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I thought it was a great meeting. I attended all of them. This has to be the best one yet. I really like, Kendall, that you're, so we could see your writing as we contribute the vision, the priorities. I really like, again, I don't know who said this, but the road diet. I just keep thinking of healthy, thriving when we have a good road diet. So, yeah, I am optimistic.
Okay. Chuck.
Not as optimistic. Let me put it that way. I'll reserve any other comments because don't want to really blow things up in the first meeting. But wasn't surprised.
Okay. Appreciate that. Appreciate you sticking with us too, you and Karen. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, I thought it was a great meeting, and there's many thoughtful ideas, lots of good energy, and yeah, I'm excited to see where we take this.
Okay. Karen?
Sorry. No, I don't have anything to add. The meeting was, I thought, a little long and labored, so I thought it could have been more productive, but that's just my own opinion.
Well, in this room and in the rooms that we're going to have coming up, everybody's opinion is valid, and we want to make sure that everybody knows that we are trying to be as inclusive as possible. So just as a reminder, our next meeting, 5:30 on the 30th. That's a Wednesday, not a Thursday. And for those that were wondering, that's because the board meeting is on the 31st. I would encourage you all to ask folks about, again, what your communities think, all that. I also will let you know you're going to get an email from Shada. For those of you that are driving or taking public transportation, we are reimbursing for mileage. So you'll see your name on the side, you'll see all the meeting dates, and there'll be a little piece in there where you put in the mileage of going to and from. And then that's calculated at the, federal rate. Also, for those of you that are parking, Robert here has got a lovely parking stamp, and we will be covering parking. And also, fun fact, on the 30th, we will have food because we'll be meeting in the evening. So when Shada sends you that information, if you have any food allergies or any thing that we need to know about, please let us know so we can make those accommodations. So again, you'll get notices, you'll get the minutes, you'll get the sheet for public transit and or mileage reimbursement. We're going to pay that out at the very end, sort of as an incentive for you to keep coming back to all the meetings. If you don't make all the meetings, your money might be in jeopardy. No, we'll pay it anyway. Anyway, thank you very much for a great meeting, everybody. Appreciate you guys. Please drive home safely, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right. Good night. Good night, everybody.